I thought I was doing the right thing, but I failed you.
The truth is, you got soft, and we paid the price.
You want Cobra Kai, it's yours.
The whole reason these kids got into trouble was because of us. We can't let them suffer because of our issues. The only way to end this is by working together. So, what do you say?
Your enemies think they're the hero, and you're the villain. There is no good.
Look at this freak.
There is no bad. Only weak or strong.
What are you, Tango and Cash?
No, Tango and Cash were narcotics detectives.
Oh, I'm sorry. You do realize neither one of you are cops, right?
I thought we were the good guys.
We try to be. There's one thing I do know for sure. You can't run away from your problems.
I might never be able to...
Never, can't. Those are just words, they're meaningless. You're not a kid anymore. The world isn't just gonna hand it to you. You want something, you have to crawl across the floor. Use your damn teeth if you have to. I'm always gonna be right here next to you. Because I'll always be your teacher. Oh, shit. It's all right, you felt like a champ.
Mr. Miyagi taught me everything you knew.
Let us find out.
Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning podcast on film and television. And this week, we're doing a specific episode solely on one of the most kick-ass, badass TV shows on right now. And it's now on Netflix, so everybody can watch it. Cobra Kai. This is season 3 we're talking about, and we are going to get into everything that happened in the 10 episodes of this year's battle between Daniel, Johnny, Kreese, and everybody else. Let's kick the show off. Hiya! My name is Aaron Peterson, and I'm joined today with my fellow co-host, Amanda Sink.
Hello, hello.
Hey, while we're talking about Cobra Kai, John is not here this week because he has not yet had a chance to watch it. Because he was coming right off vacation, and they pushed it up a week early, releasing January 1st, so we didn't watch it. We actually screened it ahead of time. That's how you saw the review from Amanda on thehollywoodoutsiders.com. So if you haven't read that yet, she gives a nice, detailed, written review of Cobra Kai. Well done.
Spoiler free. Still spoiler free.
Very spoiler free, but we're not going to do that. We're going to get spoilery. So
yes. Get
ready. And one of your hosts has actually moderated a panel with these two guys, Ralph Macchio and Billy Zabka. So I'll tell you a couple of Billy and Ralph stories at the end if you stick around, if you want to. And you'll find the post for the actual panel that I moderated at C2E2 in 2019 with the Cobra Kai guys in the website post at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. That actual panel will be there. I'm wearing full karate gi.
It was very cool.
Yes, Amanda was there. She was there. There was actually several people there cheering.
You had a lot of supporters. Yeah.
Yeah, you tried to rush backstage. Remember that? We'll talk about that at the end. I'll share some insight on those guys at the end. So let's get into the show. So the overall plot of season 3 of Cobra Kai is going to be talked about 1 second. There's one thing we should probably mention because you mentioned this and you're like a newer fan because you found this when it hit Netflix. You didn't really watch it when it was on YouTube.
No, yeah. I knew about it when it was on YouTube. I'd seen like a clip, maybe one episode, but I just didn't subscribe to YouTube Premium. So I just never watched it in full until I saw it come to Netflix. And I was like, oh, now is my time. And just binged it all very, very quickly.
Yeah. And you were not really familiar with the movies? Yes or no? I don't remember that answer.
Well, the first movie, of course, I know Karate Kid, the first movie. I had seen, I think at some point, the second one, but I didn't remember like anything about it. So it was really just the first one that I remembered, and mostly just the relationship between Danny and Mr. Miyagi and some of the lessons that he learned. So I was not, there's a lot of people who are like, have been invested in Karate Kid and Cobra Kai for years and years, and like they live and breathe and bleed, you know, karate or whatever. That wasn't me. I liked it. I respected it. You know, there were some really great references and everything and lines, but it just, you know, it was cool. I just, you know.
And so you didn't really know Shozen and Kumiko. You didn't know either one of those characters then?
No, I wasn't. I mean, like I said, I don't really remember the second one, so. Yeah, that moment was funny.
That was so hard to watch because we watched this together, and it was very, very difficult to not spoil that because they didn't show the clip, which is the best part about it, because if you saw the movie, you knew that was coming, had to come at some point. Like, he had to do that. And then he's getting ready to make the move, and if you've never seen the movie, you probably think he's probably going to hit him, right? I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I assumed he either was or he was going to like stop really, really close, and he did, but I didn't expect the honk thing. Like, I just thought he was just going to try to psych him out and like, yeah, I'm going to hit you, and then he stops, you know, short of his face.
Great moment in the movie. Live or die, man! I just love that. If you haven't seen it, go watch Karate Kid Part 2. It's almost as good as the first one. Karate Kid 3, that's less so. We'll stay away from that one. All right. But
I'm sure there will be references in the next season to that third one.
Sure. There are two things we want to mention. There's two characters that I noticed didn't come back. One was Raymond, who was the overweight, kind of didn't really fit into Cobra Kai guy. He didn't come back this season, which is, I didn't really miss him at all. But I
didn't see anything about that one.
Right. But like the other one was the actress who plays Aisha. That bothered you because they cut her, and what did you read?
Yeah, I mean, just so she had posted, and this was either 2020 or 2019 at some point, she had just posted and shared that she wasn't going to be continuing in the Cobra Kai universe. They said that they couldn't find a spot for her in the script, which I think usually Aaron and I talked about this, like, that's not a good sign. That seems like a you problem, not a script problem. But to me, I was like, well, I think it's dumb that they couldn't find a place for her in the script, which would lend itself, obviously, to, you know, it maybe not being a script problem, because that was Sam's best friend for so long. There's so many characters that you could get rid of, realistically, and keep her around, because people really liked her character. We're big fans of her, and she was like one of the original, you know, new Cobra Kais.
The OG.
If you will. Yeah, and so to get rid of that character just felt a little weird, but, you know, I just don't think it's a script problem. I don't know what it is. That's the only reason that's been shared, but yeah, she's not here.
I'll be honest.
Her family moved her away after the karate riots.
Yeah, that was handled in a one note.
They got rid of that quick. They're like, here's where she's at. We're done.
Yeah, that line was a very throwaway. Hey, here's why Aisha's not here. We're done. Let's move on. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They don't mention her a single time. Sam doesn't even like call her or anything. I just thought it was all really funny.
Yeah, because she was so pivotal to their relationship there at the beginning, and then yeah, it was an odd way to handle it. But this happens in TV shows. I will say, as the season went on, like as we watched it, I didn't miss the character so much because there's so much going on. There's just so many characters, and that could be a big reason why. I mean, why she wasn't there. And she might come back, maybe season 4, who knows? Now they got that Netflix money.
It would be weird if they brought her back in season 4, but like she had to be gone in season 3. I don't know how I'd feel about that.
She moved back.
She's gone. Just let her be gone. I don't know.
She moved back. Her family's like, we really miss Sam, and she's struggling. We need to get our best friend back in there. See, they could do it. You could write it just like you wrote. She
had like severe PTSD this season. Now is when she could have used her best friend.
She was healing from the karate riots. So good. Okay, so let's talk about the overall plot. We're obviously, wide open. So if you haven't seen this show, you've already been spoiled. So I don't know why you would keep listening if you haven't watched it, or you don't care about being spoiled. But we're just talking about it as openly as we can. And we're going to kind of talk about it a little bit overall and then kind of go character by character, just because it's easier to kind of hit the finer points that way. And yes, we will talk about Allie.
Oh, yes.
Every boy that grew up in the 80s heart just went poop, 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 poop.
And she still looks great.
She does. Yeah. She looked way better than she did in The Boys. How weird is that?
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but I don't care. I was just happy she was there. And then I was really sad when she walked away. I'm like, Johnny, are you sure you're making the right choice?
I mean, but I felt like it was pretty obvious throughout this season, even in last season, that she was going to come back pretty soon because of this Facebook messaging thing. And then as soon as he started making out with his neighbor, I was like, oh, for sure, Allie's coming into the picture. And now he's going to have to choose between these two women. And like, how is he going to handle the situation? So it felt a little obvious, but it was still nice that they brought back like a beloved character and kind of the reason this entire thing has started.
I mean, Carmen's better than, just a neighbor, right?
What's that? You think she's better?
Than a neighbor. I'm not saying she's better. Not better
gotcha.
than Allie. Simmer down. I'm not taking.
So I was like, wait, what?
I mean, Allie was.
She's better than a neighbor. Yes, I just mean like, I don't know. It's just weird to like make out with your neighbor and then like, okay, I'm gonna go home now, and you just like go walk across the lot. Whatever.
It's like this woman spawned a battle that's lasted decades. So yeah, she's apparently pretty phenomenal.
Seriously, she must be good in bed.
It was high school.
Or she just had a great heart. That's what it was.
Yeah, way to bring down the female empowerment there, boy. Huh? All right, so the overall plot of season 3, Johnny struggles to rehab Miguel. That's a big portion of it. Daniel fights to save his dealership because of the, his image took quite the tarnish with that karate riot. Can't say that enough. I really can't. Robbie struggles with prison and his battles there. Kreese weeds out the weak. We also get a lot of his backstory. And Sam rebuilds Miyagi-Do. Also, Tori comes back as her arch nemesis.
There's a debate over whether the tournament is even going to exist.
Yeah.
Continue to exist.
Exactly.
Which kind of like brings tenfold the 3 leaders of karate together, which was a really weird but cool moment because they're just trying to argue how the other one is bad, which just diminishes the entire
argument.
Yes. It's like, maybe we shouldn't have karate since you 3 grown men can't handle yourselves.
So overall, I mean, just basically encompassing the 10 episodes, what did you think overall of season 3? And especially because I had a break between season 1 and season 2, and then season 3, I had time to really get amped up, and I had, expectations and stuff. You just watched 1 and 2 not too long ago. So were you still just as energized when this was over? Did you like the direction of the story, where they went, and how they handled everything?
Yeah, I mean, I was pumped for the next season as soon as season 2 ended, and I was like, that's it? Come on, give me more episodes. And here we are finishing this season, and now I'm like, okay, I need more episodes. This, to me, was fulfilling because it's still cheesy. It still has that Cobra Kai charm, but it also did a lot more story development than I feel like the first 2 seasons did, especially when you're talking about the villain's backstory and adding another layer to his character, giving any layer to his character other than just the big bad guy, And so understanding what his journey was to being the person he is, I think that was huge for the show because it showed that Cobra Kai is not just about like these kicks and these 2 guys going at each other over a debate from one girl.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, it still is that. It still is that. It just got better and changed and morphed into something more.
Yeah, that's the thing is there were always layers there that you could have investigated and that, was just never exposed, talking about Kreese specifically. Mm-hmm. And to me, I never thought how they were going to make this last more than 1 or 2 seasons, and seeing the way that they developed the story pretty phenomenally, I think, in this season shows me, okay, they've really thought about this. They're really trying to unravel more pieces, give some nostalgia moments to the people who are longtime fans of the movies, but also create something in and of itself. So it is morphed into something more.
Yeah, and I was especially ecstatic at how they incorporated Okinawa. Because that was one thing. I knew those characters were coming back. I knew Kumiko and Jozan were coming back. And I really dug the arcs. Like, the arcs, I think, were great. But most importantly, I like how it connected and it worked. It felt like a natural story flow. It didn't feel like some forced way to get him to Okinawa, because that's what one thing I kept thinking, like, the whole time I knew they were coming back. I'm like, are they coming to LA? I mean, I know he's going to Okinawa, but for what? And they really did a smart job with bringing the car dealership into it, and how he's going to lose a very important client of his. And he has to go to Japan to basically address this. And then he ends up going to Okinawa for spiritual guidance and whatnot. And like, all that really, really worked for me. And Daniel's probably the one character I felt like didn't get as much character development from the previous 2 seasons. I really think Johnny's always had it. Like, his character development, like, it's been pivotal to the show and the success of the show. Kreese has never had it. He wasn't even a character. He was just the bad guy lurking in the corner. Daniel had a lot of it in the movies, but in the show, it's really been about him just reacting to Johnny throughout the series, just reacting, I feel. And this season, I really felt like they found that right rhythm to, also incorporate the movies, but also give his character more development and more places to go that feel like a natural evolution of his character. And I love that.
Yeah, definitely. Johnny has definitely kind of been more of the focal point in terms of the development, because he's such a fluid character. He's so reactionary. He's, unpredictable. He's brash, and
he's fun. He's more fun. Like,
he is fun.
Like, you can't.
He is fun, and he's
That's
hilarious.
the difference between the 80s and now. Back in the 80s, the nice guy was always finishing last and everything else. Well, now nice guys are like in charge of everything, or a lot of things. I mean, they're tech gurus and things like that. Now, like, it's cool to have the flawed character, the fun, the broken character, and see him fix himself. That's like more alluring. So Danny's still the very, very nice guy. Johnny's probably more engaging for a lot of people because he's so flawed and broken and willing to say things that people think you shouldn't say.
Yeah. And then it puts Danny in a very particular situation that anytime he is forced to confront any issues with, whether it be with Kreese or with Johnny or with the community, he always has to come back to kind of being a peaceful and defensive person, not offensive, because of Miyagi's teachings. And so that's like integral to the person he is.
Absolutely.
Which naturally makes him I don't want to say less interesting character.
No, not less interesting.
He's not
just less
uninteresting.
Less fun to watch. Because he's usually doing the right thing. So it's like, well, it's not as fun as some guy screaming at a little kid,
Yeah, definitely. Or letting them fall on their face,
You felt like a champ.
That's what you need. So, yeah, the two characters, they have a really great balance, though, which I think is something that is also a piece of karate in general, is talking about balancing your body, balancing your emotions, balancing everything. And these two characters balance each other. They're kind of like their yin and yang, which is kind of beautiful.
It is beautiful. And as you see throughout the season, like, they're coming to a point where I believe they have a 6-season plan as the goal. I mean, whether Netflix lets them get there or not, we don't know. Definitely coming back with season 4, but they said they have a 6-season plan. I really like when shows get a timetable. I think that really helps them. I mean, look at Schitt's Creek. That was just, and if they get that, I really hope so. But I really feel like we are getting to the point where they will eventually be friends, because, like Allie said at one point, you guys have much more in common than you think. You see things in each other that you don't like because you have them too, or something along those lines. And it was just, okay, very, very astute that she's the one kind of bringing them back together. So there's a lot of that fun stuff.
And I think that the end of this season shows us that they're going to be joining together and that they're going to be friends in a way.
Frenemies.
Although they're still going to get on each other's nerves, and they still have a different way of doing things. So that'll be really interesting to see in the next season is how they manage those, because they are very, very different teachers. They have different teachings, and seeing them work together as one unit of teachers will be instructors, senseis, will be really interesting.
Some of my favorite
how that unfolds.
Some of my favorite episodes have been when they were actually getting along. So I think it was the first season where they get together and they go on that joyride and they relive some, they go to Daniel's old apartment or whatever. It's just a lot of reliving history, and they were having a good time. They got drunk or whatever. And then when they went on the double date in season 2, I thought that was just fantastic. So
yeah,
they really do rub off each other in that yin and yang way pretty stellarly. Like things in a way that I couldn't have predicted when I knew this show was coming out. I really didn't expect it to be as good as it is.
And they give us a little bit of that in each season, like just enough to get us wanting more and hoping that it comes to like full fruition, because we saw it at the dinner with Allie. We at first, Johnny was very trepidatious, and he was a little bit like, as soon as he saw Danny talking to Allie, oh my gosh. And the drama starts, the tension is building. And then they just have a really good dinner, like just kind of shit talking and having fun and laughing. And Allie's bringing up all of these funny moments from the past with both of them. And Amanda has a great story, character arc in this season too. And so we get to see a little bit of her response to things as a team member with Danny.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's a great segue. Let's get into the characters, because then we can probably talk a little bit about what they went through this year a little bit more in depth. So first up is Robbie, who spends most of the season in prison, fighting off another gang, another Cobra Kai-esque gang.
Bullies.
Yeah. So, there's bullies everywhere in the world. And he cut his hair. He cut that dumb hair. So it's not getting in his way every time he's fighting. But I will say, in terms of, we're going to speak to them as characters, not so much actors. So just get used to that. But, it just makes it easier when you're talking about the show itself. I really dug his fighting style. I really think Robbie is one of the most, in terms of the characters, one of the best in terms of fighting. I just feel like he's very accomplished at it, and he looks the best on screen. So whenever he's getting in a fight, I get a little excited. So when they had a prison fight, I was pretty stoked.
Yeah, he seems like he's more of a natural fighter. Like, I don't question, unlike Sam, if there's some guidance there in terms of the choreography and just trying to hit the right moves. It feels like he's actually in a fight, which makes it all the more kind of like uproarious for me, where I'm like, yeah, get him, do it. Like I want him to win and I want to see him fight. And he has that energy too, because he's fueled by his emotions. And so whenever he has a moment where, say when he saw Johnny and they were talking about him being missing as a dad for so many years and how he kind of blamed himself. And then he starts fighting his dad. I was like, oh my gosh, this was so cool, until Johnny smacks him into the locker.
Hey, it was defensive. It was defensive.
It was.
He should have relaxed. Every day with the sun has been there where you're like, I don't know, I might have to beat this kid's ass, but I can't. You can't touch your kid, and then they come at you, so you gotta do what you gotta do. I understand where Johnny's coming from. He tried to do the right thing, and Robbie was just so angry, rightfully so, I should say. Rightfully so. But in terms of, in terms of just genuine choreography, I think Tanner Buchanan is as Robbie is the best of the young cast. For that.
He is. Yeah.
And I love Robbie's story, because it's hard not to feel for the kid. He does feel like everybody abandoned him after the riots.
Well, he's got one of the saddest stories. Aside from Tori, who is another great fighter, in my opinion.
Yes, she is. Yeah. She's really good.
She's really engaging on the screen, and she's got, that, I don't know, she's just very vivacious, and like her demeanor and her mannerisms, and she has her reasons for being angry, and I get it. She is for sure cray-cray. Like, she is crazy.
She's mad. I don't see...
She's mad, But she's got like a personal life story that makes her sympathetic as a character the same way Robbie does. And like Robbie's story is one that comes to the front center screen because it's with Johnny, and you feel really bad for him because you know that Johnny's flawed. You know that he hasn't been an excellent dad. You see him spending all of this time with Miguel and trying to help him, even sacrificing moments to see Robbie when he's in prison to help Miguel because of his guilt and, you know, his affection for this guy. And at the same time, that puts Robbie in like a horrible position because he feels like he's being abandoned by his dad all over again. And so he's a character that he's got, for some people, a very relatable story. And for others who can't, you know, relate to their own lives, they can just feel sympathy for this kid who's kind of just going through it. He's getting the shit end of the stick every single time.
Oh man, that day when when Johnny didn't show up to prison, that episode.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, why wouldn't, like, this is the one time you gotta be there. You just gotta be there. I mean, it's hard for me to sympathize with Johnny on that one because that poor kid gave him one more chance and you blew it. You just blew it. You picked another kid over him.
He did. He picked, and he picked the kid that he had this altercation with. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's so hard because then it feels like, especially for a teenager, it feels like, okay, well, you're picking his side in the fight and you're picking his side, another kid's side, as like a parent. Like, you're supposed to be there for me, but you're being more of a dad to this guy. And I'm in prison because of this fight I got into with him and because I just happened to kick him in all of the wrong / right ways where, you know, it put him in a coma. And
well, that very last kick he probably should have pulled back from. I mean, the guy's right next to the railing. That's on you, Robbie. I mean, come on.
He didn't mean to do that much harm, though. Like, Miguel was going at him pretty hard, too.
He didn't mean to. It happens. But we're left in a place where he is basically sided with Kreese. And that was, wow. I mean, that's heartbreaking to watch as a fan. Yeah, it is. But part of me wants to think or hope, maybe it's just the optimist in me, this is how Johnny gets Cobra Kai back. So bear with.
You just mean because his dad, or because his son is like involved in it and then their relationship mends?
Because he's with Kreese. He's working at that dojo now. He's with him all the time. He could do the same thing that Kreese did to Johnny at some point and basically, you know, doctor the paperwork and give it back to Johnny somehow. Like he's on the inside if they can ever mend that relationship. Yeah,
and that's the thing is Johnny's he's got to figure out a way to mend that relationship. And I don't know how because
he slammed his freaking head in the locker? Yeah, well, that's going to be difficult.
And Robbie just keeps telling him, I don't want you around. He doesn't even want Daniel around anymore. When they both go to pick him up from prison, he's like, why? And they're fighting. And so maybe, you know, in the next season, as they start to mend their relationship, Robbie will see that and he'll feel better about it. And then he'll mend his own relationship. But
I love that finale fight, though, between him and, I mean, because he's all doing defensive moves. And Robbie's just coming at him. And there's a lot of power on the screen. I really felt like he delivered in that performance at that time. Like he really wanted to hurt his dad and you felt it. And Johnny really felt responsible for it. Like all of that stuff was on the actors' faces as they're going. And I thought that was great. That really was. Yeah. So probably my favorite overall fight of the whole season, which there's always some karate fights in every episode. And you have to wonder why. But, it's based on karate. I get it.
I was going to say, that's the whole show. So if they left some karate out, we'd be like, why is there not more karate?
Exactly. I understand. So that's Robbie's art. You talked about Tori. She gets a little bit of character development in this season with, her mom's ill and she's trying to work jobs. Then Kreese comes and helps her because obviously she's a fantastic fighter. And at the end, she once again goes after Sam, who's dealing with PTSD, but we'll come to Sam in a minute. Are you happy with the arc she has, and do you think she's redeemable as a character?
I do think she's redeemable. I mean, if we look at everything that she's experienced, it's hard to not feel for her. She's in a horrible position with her mom. She's just trying to make ends meet. She works multiple jobs. She's just trying to, provide for her mom and herself and her brother. And she's getting harassed by this creepy landlord who's like 40 something years old and apparently is so disgusting that no woman his age wants to sleep with him, that he's got to try to go for children. And, you know, she finally felt like she had found a good part of her life and then felt like Sam took that away from her. I think it's normal for girls to fight over a boy. And that's kind of really what it is it's the same thing Johnny and Daniel went through.
It's basically like the female version of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it would be hard for me to say that Johnny's redeemable in, you know, the last couple of seasons he's been redeemable in some way, although not 100%, and then not give her that same opportunity. So I for sure think she is, because she obviously has heart. She has empathy. She seems like she has goodness in her, but if she stands by Kreese's side, it's going to continue to consume her. And she's got to find a way to get away from that light, you know, that negativity, and find goodness again.
But once again, she's with Kreese as well. I mean, he basically bailed her out, so she's even got more loyalty.
She does. I hope that, and it'll probably take a while, but I hope that there's some sort of way for her to come to their side. But I also, it makes for a really cool story if she stays as the bad guy, because she's an awesome fighter and she's fun to watch. So, you know, hopefully she... The inside of me, I hope that she goes to the good side. But then, you know, the viewer in me is like, well, it'd be kind of cool to see her continue.
Yeah, it's like, how nice do you want Johnny to get? I mean, it's the same basic thinking. Like, she's probably one of the most fun characters on the show because she's so flawed. And she, you know, she could beat somebody's ass if she really wanted to.
Oh, yeah. And she's vicious. I mean, she's brutal. Even in the finale fight in season 2, when she pulled out her little daggers on her knuckle daggers, you know, she had no mercy, and she's living that in this season.
Yeah, shout out to Peyton List. She's really good at choreography too. She's second to Robbie, I would say, in terms of the fight.
Agree. Yeah.
And let's go to Samantha LaRusso, Mary Mouser. Now, let's be upfront. You have not liked this character.
Not since day one.
Not since day one.
I really want to like her character because there's a lot of things about her character that I like, and her character I don't really have an issue with. And I hate to say this because it does make me feel bad, but it's really just the actress. I will say, though, she has gotten better.
Yes, this season was much better.
She has... I don't want to say she's on Netflix acting level yet. She's still like in between. I
don't even know what that means.
She's on YouTube. When she first started, it was like TikTok, and then she elevated to like YouTube acting. And now I think she's sitting there. She's just, maybe next season she'll be on Netflix level.
She definitely got better. Like when she was going through the PTSD, I was believing it, because I'm not the biggest fan of that particular character either. She's very... and she makes dumb decisions, which
mopey.
At one point, Daniel talks to her about her decisions, and that was just a weird comment. I'm like, you just called your daughter a whore. That's like what I heard.
Yes, he did. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
That's the only moment of the whole season where I'm like, X-nay, that one. That shouldn't have been in the show. But she got better as the show went on, and where I didn't really believe her fighting in the first 2 seasons, I'm sorry, I really didn't. It all felt very choreographed to me. It felt a lot more solid in the finale this time.
Yeah.
Not great. She has a hard time selling tough. Yeah. The actress has a hard time selling tough.
That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. She's really great at selling, you know, those somber emotions. When she has her PTSD and she has her fear and she has sadness, I believe all of those emotions. But I think she is just so much of a soft actress in terms of like her heart, maybe, I guess, that I just don't believe her when she's angry and she's trying to be furious and a badass or something, and it just doesn't come off right. And so I think they need to, if they're obviously keeping this actress, so they need to mend the character around the actress and stop trying to shape her to be a Tori, you know, an opposite Tori with the same reactions and stuff. That's not who she is. And I think they just need to work on that a little bit to shape it for her, for the actress. Yeah,
because otherwise her arc was actually interesting, I thought. It was interesting to have a teenager who, because usually after a karate riot, everybody bounces back pretty quick, but there's real consequences in this season. Like there's real ramifications to everything that happened. And I thought that was fantastic because you don't get that in shows that are kind of cheesy, kitschy, nostalgic, and, goofy in some ways. You don't really get that in those kinds of shows. And this one really nails it, I think. And I loved her arc. And she did get, as an actor, I mean, you don't want to pick on someone. I just feel like it's the tough moments where she loses me a little. But she got way better as the season went on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that, honestly, her arc, along with Kreese's, the parallels between them
very similar,
is what makes this season so fascinating to me. It's probably my favorite piece of the story because they're really taking a deep dive, and I did not expect Cobra Kai to do this, at what PTSD looks like and how the impacts of these certain situations that they're forced to be in and how that affects their mental health, like for the rest of their life. We see that with Kreese. We see how it's impacted him, and we'll talk about his later. Mm-hmm. And seeing it paralleled with someone who right now is the good person. We're supposed to see the LaRussos all as the good people. And so seeing her struggle with panic attacks and freezing, and the very intimate conversation with her dad about her panic attacks and her mom, and just being very authentic and honest about that. I think it was really deep, and it took it to another level for the show because mm-hmm. They've gotten deep in terms of Johnny's story at times, and it's like a lot of father-son sort of thing, but they didn't get into the father-daughter deep level. And so I thought that was really sweet, and it made her characters seem more 3D,
Yeah, I agree. And I think they did a good job of kind of showing the real father-daughter relationship and less of the karate is everything about their relationship, which was nice.
Yeah, I mean, even the moments where he is like, how did I miss all of this that's going on with her? Because he was so focused and wrapped up in himself.
Because he was calling her a whore.
Yeah, like he just was so consumed in this debate about karate and dojos and like this altercation that he's, always stuck in, that he doesn't even notice what's going on with his family.
Yeah.
I also think it's weird that like the brother is like in there for like a minute or two.
They totally put him in there, and I swear it's a different actor. I don't even know. I didn't check. But
like, why is this kid even here?
He was there for one scene just to remind you that, hey, we didn't forget we got rid of this kid. He's still around, but he doesn't do karate. He's out of this. It's like we don't have a place for him. He's very much the Aisha of the family, I guess. And they just brought him in for one scene to remind you that they didn't give him up for adoption or something.
I would have liked to see more support for her character, though, in finding other friendships. Like, I know she had Miguel, but that's also kind of relationship-y.
Yeah,
I wanted just like a solid, right? It's very relationship-y. I wanted a solid friendship that was still there to support her, because everyone that's been around her, it's been romantic. It's been Robbie or it's been Miguel. And like, I just want, she had Aisha. If they're going to get rid of her, find someone else who can be there for her, because somebody would have been there for her. Somebody would have.
And I did like that relationship too with her and Aisha.
Yeah, I think it's like weird to just pull her in and isolate her so much.
Yeah.
And while you have support for all of these other characters, like even Robbie found himself a new friend, found someone who supported him, even though it's really messed up that Kreese is there for him. He has something.
Absolutely. And, speaking of character development, how about Hawk? Hawk went full-on bully this season and did probably, I would say, the most horrific thing in the show by breaking his friend Dimitri's arm. Like, that was messed up. And, Tori doesn't get off on this one either. Nobody that was there gets off on that because they all encouraged him. But he did it. And did you see that coming? I mean, we'll get to he came around at the end, but did you see him going that far?
I don't know that I ever saw him going this far. It just felt like it was brutal. It was brutal.
Oh, man.
I did not. And when you actually see it happen and you see Dimitri's face, like, I don't think he really thought it was going to happen. Like, he was scared.
You're like, oh,
but he wasn't. Yeah. And he just like, he pulls away from it with just so much soullessness. Like, I feel like he was just empty. And then we see his heart later, when he realizes, but it's like, man, you can see the impact that this power has on people. The bullied becomes the bully, and it's just a terrible cycle. Absolutely terrible.
I mean, the one good thing that came out of that broken arm is that Dimitri did get, his penis cast filled in with "you got a big dick" from the girl he likes. So there's that. So some good came out of that. Even if it was a pity writing, whatever it was, it worked. And
it was.
He's making out with her at the end.
He did get to make out with her.
He's making out with her at the end. It's all good.
It's not all bad for him. He's had an okay year.
But he's this character who's been evolving into the bully for quite some time. And I really enjoyed seeing him go full bully, because bullying is so, important to the show. I mean, it's in every aspect of the series. And you needed to see a character who went from the weakling to the tough guy to the full-on bully. I mean, at first he was just gaining confidence and he was learning how to fight and he was, getting more sure of himself. And slowly but surely he became the worst. Like he was really getting close to being Kreese until he did that and he realized how far he had gone and what he had done to his friend. I mean, for no reason other than he was embarrassed.
It didn't even faze him until the end when he was like he realized he was fighting all of the people that supported him for so long and like how bad he really was. Like, they threw a kid through a window. Like, the poor LaRusso house is just demolished.
Yeah.
Imagine how they're going to feel when they get home. But one thing that I have to say about Hawk is the actor, Jacob Bertrand, is like, he so naturally seems to flow between these two personality types.
Yes,
where
he does.
he's bullied and you can just feel him crawling inside of himself with embarrassment and shame, and then he can immediately snap to being the strong, powerful leader who's willing to do whatever it takes. And he actually kind of comes head to head with Robbie a little bit too, because he doesn't like anyone stepping on his territory. Mm-hmm. And Robbie's pissing all over it, when he goes in and he steals that snake.
Yeah. And he's a good actor. I really, really enjoy what he's doing with the role. And that mohawk is just phenomenal. Like, yeah. I hope they don't get rid of that.
Okay, so one of my favorite moments for him is, and it's still brutal, but it's when they're at the Cobra Kai dojo and Kreese has gotten some new people in, and one of them is the guy that bullied him a ton, and then he starts laughing at him. And then he's like, oh, it's my turn. And so Hawk goes in and he like takes off his, what do they call it? Just the top part of the gi. Yeah. Is it just still called a gi?
Sure. Top half. Shirt.
Top half. And he takes that off and like the hawk noise happens and his tattoo shows. And it's just like a really cool moment. And he just annihilates his enemy.
And you hear the hawk.
Yeah. It's cheesy, but it's amazing. And, he's a really cool character. He has some awesome movements. And at first I was so proud of him because I was like, heck yeah.
Oh man, he
you shouldn't be bullied.
Him. Yeah.
And then he gets obviously a little too consumed in it, but that was a really cool moment because I love seeing him be the one that like goes up against the bullies.
It wasn't as cool as at the end when he saves Dimitri and he does that flying kick over that guy and you hear the hawk cry and it's like,
yes. Yeah, there were some really good fights. I can't, I don't know that he has a name, but he's just one of the fighting guys. And he's like, come on, bitch. And he just starts bubbling this other kid. And I'm like, there's so many cool like fight moments in this last finale fight.
Yeah, it was fun. I think it was really, really good. It wasn't as intense as the Robbie dad fight, but still.
Yeah, that one had a lot of motion and heart in it, though.
All right, Miguel. We got to go to Miguel. Oh, this poor kid. So he's basically in a coma, and then he can't walk, and he's struggling. He gets to go to a Dee Snider concert, which would make anybody's foot move. You know, you get it. Yeah. And then he gets full karate back before the end of the season. And, of course, we get to see somebody kick him onto his, like, back into a couch or whatever it was. And God, that was...
it was a table.
Yeah,
it was a table.
Oh, that was brutal. But what did you think about Miguel's arc? Because he's got the, you know, for most of the season, he's in a wheelchair and he's struggling to get back to where he needs to be. And meanwhile, Johnny's helping him along.
Yeah, I liked his arc, especially because of the relationship that he has with Johnny and the strain that puts on Johnny and Robbie's relationship. Like, it pulls at your heartstrings because you want Miguel to be happy. You want him to continue having the sensei who's always been by his side. But then if you have empathy or sympathy for Robbie, it's like, oh, God, they're spending so much time together and he's acting like his dad. And you know,
he's doing all these things for Miguel, but he doesn't spend any time working on Robbie.
Yeah. It's just, there's a lot of sadness there. The one thing that I was like, did we really have to do this is when he and Sam start to like rekindle their romance. Because I didn't need it. I was really hoping that they would just be friends. I was hoping it wouldn't be a cheap plot point to make Robbie angry again. You know, there's so many other things he can be pissed off about. We don't need this. And just the two of them, I've never felt like they had the real chemistry. I've always felt like Sam and Robbie have really great chemistry and that they work really well together. I just don't buy her and Miguel. Like, I buy them as really close friends, and I was hoping that after everything that had happened, they would realize that, and then, you know, Tori would realize that she was being upset about nothing, and then that could lead to some resolution. We're obviously not getting that, and Miguel is just... he and Sam are making the same mistakes again. So that's kind of a little bit of a disappointment, I guess.
As long as they don't go back down the well of they break up and, you know, there's more back and forth. Like, I'm over that.
Yeah,
I'm
the
really
drama.
Yeah.
It's getting too dramatic. Yeah.
Like, I get it. You guys are a little soap opera-y, and that's fine. I kind of like that aspect. Just know when it's time to cut bait on that particular story point. Like, if you're going to get them together, leave them together. That's just leave them together. Yeah. I don't need more.
We're in season 3. Just make a decision.
I don't need to go push and pull with that again. I really, really don't. But I really dug Miguel's journey. A lot of it had to do with how Johnny came to it, though. I feel like Miguel as a character kind of didn't have as much to do, but it's also a huge story point. Like, he's got to get back on his feet, and he can't really contribute a ton to the story if he's, you know, in a chair the whole time. So, I mean, you know, because it's a karate show. So,
but you're right. It does that plot point is really lending more to Johnny's character than it is to Miguel.
It really is, yeah.
It's not so much about Miguel's recovery and how he's managing to survive and overcome this. It's much more about that dynamic in their relationship, or really Johnny being a mentor, a real sensei to him. And so he doesn't really have much to do.
He doesn't, until he gets his ass kicked on a table. Yep.
Yeah.
Ugh, that was brutal. But then that brings us to Kreese. Oh man, Martin Kove is a great guy. I got drunk with him. I'm not going to talk about that story, but I will tell you he's a nice guy. And he's nothing like his character. He's actually a very, very nice guy. But he
could absolutely fool me on that, because he is just maniacal in this season.
Yes, he's great as a bad guy. You know, he always has been. He's just got that in his blood. And here we get a backstory for Kreese, where we learn
finally.
Now, I guess I want to ask you about that, because some people really love the fact that John Kreese doesn't really have a backstory. He's just a guy, and it's very mysterious, and you don't really know why he does the things he does and how much of it's true and how much of it isn't. It's more of an enigma character, where now we really know who Kreese is. Do you prefer that?
I would disagree. I think there's still a lot of mysteriousness to his character. We just understand his motivations to get to this point a little bit better. we still are left quite open to what's happened between his teenage years, basically, when he was a young adult in the military, what happened between then and him as an older man. So I think there's still a level of mysteriousness, and he does seem to catch us by surprise. You know, nothing we found out in that story changes what we perceived that character to be, other than someone who suffered PTSD. Like, and suffered just in the military. And like, we saw
I don't know about that. I think it changes who he is, because he was very much like Daniel's son when he was young. I mean, he got picked on a little bit, and he finally fought back, and he got the girl, and he loved the girl, and he went off to war because he wanted to do the right thing. And then he kind of got screwed over by his commander. I mean, and that's where he took a turn. You know, I mean,
but I'm saying from that point where he took a turn and who he is today, nothing in that giant timeline is really that different. We know that he is bad. We know that we can expect kind of the worst from him. What we didn't know is what shifted, is like what he was like prior to the bad stuff, you know, prior to him getting locked into a cage and getting rid of his commander and leaving him to the snakes.
Murdering him. Murdering him. Not leaving him to the snakes. He straight up murdered him.
And I mean, I liked that I got to see a little bit of that darkness kind of like corrode his entire being, you know, because he started as someone who was really gentle and kind. Mm-hmm. And he was bullied, and he did do the right thing. He stuck up for the woman. He got the woman, like, good for him. You were kind of rooting for him. And then we see what happened in his experiences to change the way that he responded to things, the way he acted, and how that made him the no mercy guy. But that still does not change who he is today. Like, that's still the same guy. He is still just as depraved and vicious, and kind of, he's very strategic in what he does. Smart. And I love the end moment when he's making that call to the guy that owes him a favor.
Why do you love that moment?
Just because it leads you into more, like, we're really investigating his character arc. Mm-hmm. We're really getting to know who he is. And to me, very few villains do I not care for a backstory for. You know, even when it came to Joker, when we got the Joker movie in 2019, that was something I never needed, but it was still cool to see. Don't ever need to see it again, though. This is still a character where it's cool to know the backstory because of the way that he interacts with these other characters. And he's not a super villain or anything like that. He's just a mean guy, but I like knowing where he came from. And I think that shows that there's a level of humanity left in him. And so there's a chance for redemption, but there's also a chance not for redemption. And leaving that open, you know, leaves his character to be very unpredictable, which makes him more scary to me.
Yeah, and that phone call, this is my guess, would probably be that he was calling Terry Silver, which you probably didn't see Karate Kid 3, but that's Thomas Ian Griffith. And I think he's a martial artist too, but he was basically the bad guy in that movie. And he was partners with Kreese in the third film. So I'm wondering if that's who he's calling for next season. And that's probably the illusion that they're giving us, but I don't know for sure if that's going to happen. But yeah, I am with you in terms of, I really, really enjoyed getting a backstory for Kreese. It was kind of, I don't know, off-putting, but also really cool that they turned him into a murderer. I mean, I just thought that,
yeah.
I mean, he was a bully. He's been a bully in every episode, movie that he's been a part of. Like, he's just not a great guy. And on the same token, we get a lot of backstory. We get a lot of, we see that he actually has genuine feeling for Johnny. I think he really does care about Johnny. I think he really does consider him family. And he really gave him every opportunity to quote unquote come back to Cobra Kai, but only under his.
And that's how you know that he cares about him.
Absolutely.
Because he does not seem like a guy who gives second chances. Even the people in the dojo who didn't survive the fights when he was trying to, weed them out, he didn't give a second thought to them despite their loyalty to him from, being OGs. So they were just gone. He's not someone who gives second chances. So he obviously has a care for Johnny. And I think he just really wants to mold him into like taking over his legend of who he is as a bad guy.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. And I just, man, it's totally different to be a bully than a murderer. So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and
sure.
you can debate that all you want, but I mean, he straight up let that dude die. In fact, I think he stepped on his hand, right? So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he made him die.
Yeah.
He was like, he had the opportunity. It wasn't that he had the opportunity to take his hand and save him and he just walked away. He was like, nah, you're going down to the snakes, man. Peace out.
See ya. All right. So one question I want to ask before we move on from Kreese is that bullying is like this huge section for the season. And Daniel, he learns from Shozan that, and I always say that name wrong, so I apologize, but he learns from him that you can change, which I love that angle because the whole time you see Shozan, he just seems like he wants to punch Daniel in the face. And then he lightens up and he's actually very bright and funny and happy and that great moment. Or
Yeah.
you get worse, like Kreese. So, I mean, there's so much of a conversation about bullying in this show. And since we're talking about the biggest bully on the show, I kind of wanted to know, like, what do you think about how Cobra Kai addresses it, especially in season 3 or has it to this point?
Yeah, when it comes to bullying, they've shown that throughout the different seasons, but they really do a keen look at it in this season because they're addressing it from all angles. No one is immune to it, I think is kind of the concept. And like you brought up, there's a way to overcome and survive it and be better from it. And there's a way to just allow yourself to be consumed by it and become the worst. And so you have a choice in your path, and what you do with it is a choice. And so there's this concept of redemption that I think is really important that comes in ties with the bullying concept, because we saw Hawk, who was probably one of the greatest bullies of the season, and the darkness and depravity in him when he hurt his close friend who's always been there for him. But he had a moment of redemption. He saved his friends. So there's just that lingering concept that they reinforced subtly, but also they didn't try to hide it. And they didn't try to make excuses for being the bully because, you saw people who were bullied. Sam has been bullied, and she wasn't this massive jerk out to get her friends just to be the bigger person or whatever, and have the power. She didn't let that happen. Miguel hasn't let that happen. There's so many characters where they haven't let that happen to them, even Robbie. And then you can see that contrasted with the other characters who do allow it to consume them. And then and they're all youths. And then you can look at the elders, who have already gone through all of this crap. And they've made their choices. And they've either said, I'm going to be better or I'm going to be worse. And so I liked that. I liked that you got to see the whole picture of like a journey and a path of bullying and the effects that it can have on someone, on relationships and friendships, just internally, and what you can do in response to it.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with how this show has handled it because it's really examining. I mean, every character, or the majority of the characters, have some angle of being bullied in their life, except Amanda, I think, so far. But, just a few more seasons left. You never know what you're going to get. Maybe we'll find out she was attacked in high school or something. And it's how different people respond to it, how their upbringing influences. I mean, that's a big reason why Sam is still a good person, is because her upbringing was positive. Robbie has kind of gone back and forth because he's had a really complicated upbringing. So he struggles more, I mean, it's a very, I don't think the show gets enough credit for how astutely it focuses on the concept of bullying and what it can do to people. Even though, I mean, it can be kitschy and, a little nostalgic and everything else, the show really, really does a good job of that. And I don't think it gets nearly enough credit for it.
we also take a moment and laugh about the way that they mock the school responses to bullying, where it's like hugs, not hugs, not drugs, but like, yeah, hugs, not kicks. And then they're like, they make a savage remark towards Dare, which was like that 90s, 2000s program against drugs. And they're like, it's like Dare, but it works. And I'm like, oh my God. It was so funny. But it's also, there are a lot of programs out there that quote unquote address bullying. But even in this show, when we're looking at this counselor and these teachers, they're not really seeing the full picture. Like Sam was being bullied and she just defended herself, but she has like this, red A on her chest. And now all of a sudden they're like out to get her. And it's like, you're kind of being part of the problem. Do you not recognize that?
Yep.
And so I think that even is just like an elevated way to address another issue with bullying, which is that schools and administrators need to have a different approach to it, because there's so many different sides to a story and everyone's perception is, you're only seeing one part of it.
And they did bring up exactly how people would react, which is we got to ban karate. Like karate is the problem. So we don't want a karate footloose or whatever that was. It's just it's a ridiculous concept, but that's exactly how people would react. They would be like, we got to shut down karate because that's the problem, not that those particular kids just were stupid.
Yeah, and not addressing what's going on between these kids that's causing this issue, that's causing them to fight. What's going on in their home lives that's causing them to be this angry?
Maybe if they weren't all being followed or weren't being led by two guys who can't get over their immortal clash, maybe that would be a better thing.
Yeah.
All right, Allie, we kind of talked about her. That's the one thing people have been wanting for years. And I know you don't really understand it probably to the level that I do. But
well, that's just because like the clear 80s infatuation with Elizabeth Shue and
Be Still My Heart.
I feel like everybody understood why they fought over this girl. And that's really what it comes to. Does it not?
Yeah, I get it. And if I was her when she finally agreed to come back and because you notice she came in season 3, and it's when it's going to Netflix. So I don't know how they finally got her, but I'm picturing it goes like this. All right, you got 2 seasons. It looks good. Oh, you're going to Netflix. All right, I can do this. I can do this. Give me that Netflix money. I'll come do your show. You can't afford me for 10 episodes, but probably an episode and a half you can handle. And then as soon as she gets to set, if I'm her, all I say is, hi, I'm Oscar winner Elizabeth Shue. How you guys doing? You guys good? Okay. That's what I would do. But what did you think of bringing Allie finally back? And also, it seems like for just a temporary fix, and also to be what brings those two together in a way.
Oh, well, I love the way that they brought her character into it, because Johnny had to finally, figure out technology, and it just provided so much humor watching him try to go through Facebook, and he's got this long paragraph about his life, a novel, and Miguel's like, there's no way you're sending that, and he types back, not much, you. I'm like, oh my God. And so
I love that
finally,
so much.
She's brought back with a logical reason. Okay, like her family, and then there's this party thing. So she's in town from that. She's separated from her husband, and she's not. I liked that she wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna be here and I'm just gonna come between these guys again. Like there are some women out there who would be like, oh, I'd love to have 2 men fight over me. Doesn't matter their age or that one of them is married. And she didn't let that happen. She was just a very, like, you understood why these guys fought for this girl for so long, because she was just so sweet and authentic, and she was nice to Amanda, and they had a great time. And at the very end of her and Johnny's night, like, she tells him, you've got a great woman who, you need to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And
because he totally would have made the mistake. He totally would have.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%, 100%. He was ready. He went there to begin with.
Yeah, I
so
got it.
That's already
I get it.
That's already not a good sign. But I loved that she was just, that's who she is. There are so many people in general that would be so selfish and just say, nah, I could use a little bit of extra love and attention, or biddenness tonight. But instead, she's like, no, I know what's good for you, and this is good for you. You need this.
And she seemed to be into him until she found out about karma. She's like, oh, I don't want to. I mean, she seems like she evolved into a very good person, which she always was.
Yeah, exactly. And that just makes her kind of all the more beautiful from the viewer's perspective. And I'm sure from everybody else's. But
yeah, even Amanda wasn't that threatened. She's like, I love her. You know,
yes.
I like that because you didn't get what you would kind of expect. I think, which is, oh, the wife's going to be jealous and we're going to play that card. You know, we've only seen that a bazillion times. Instead, it's because Amanda's very confident. She's like, I know what he's got. I ain't worried about it. It's all good.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I can't wait to talk to you. And I was like, that is how a woman would respond. Like a confident woman would be like, let's have a conversation because I need all the stories with all of the wine.
And they did a really fun twist on how they broke up, which is that Daniel was too jealous. You know, he just he acted like a big baby, and that's what cost him the girl ultimately.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and that makes it a more interesting story too, I think, because both of these characters fought so hard for the girl, and ultimately it was their own mistakes that cost them the girl.
Yep.
So they have nobody to blame except for themselves because they both had the opportunity. They both screwed it up. Well,
from Johnny's point of view, basically Daniel stole her. So
I mean, that's what he thinks, but if he wasn't such a jerk, she would have been ready to be stolen.
That's true. Plus,
she was like, come kidnap me, please.
All right, let's move to Daniel. So we talked a lot about his journey, and also, I mean, Amanda kind of is part of this too because she's dealing with the dealership issues.
She's a huge story in this.
Well, talk about Amanda because you really want to talk about her arc. So what do you want to talk? Why did you love her arc so much?
I love that they gave her something to do. I have been, in the last couple of seasons, to me, it's felt like she's just been there as a support and reassurance to Daniel. And I was really hoping that we would get to see her flourish the way that she appears to be able to do. Like, she is very successful. She is gorgeous. She has confidence. Like, I want to see that. And when she goes over and she smacks Kreese in the face, what? Go, girl. I was so proud of her because nobody has the audacity to just go up to that man and smack him. And she has every move in her pocket. She's trying to figure everything out. She has tabs on everything. And I think that that's something that I love to see in a grown woman is that, yeah, she has a family. Yeah, she has a business. Yeah, she's taking care of everything. And she looks good doing it. Like she doesn't have to just sit idly by and watch Daniel solve his problems. Sometimes it requires your partner realizing that you're in over your head and I can help you. And I liked that.
Sounds like it's spoken from a true point of view of a control freak. All right. So I
am, but
I do. I love Amanda. I think she did get something to do this season, and normally she's just responding to whatever Daniel's doing. So I did like that she got some opportunities to take some initiative.
She was funny. Like they gave her moments to be funny.
She's always funny. She really is.
Yeah.
Like she's such naturally a comedic actress.
Yeah. That moment back to the dinner when Daniel comes back after talking to Johnny and Allie, and she's like, so that's 2 hugs for Allie, just to kind of ride him a little, give him a hard time.
Speaking of Daniel, I got to talk about the Tango and Cash scene. I was talking earlier about how my favorite scenes or favorite episodes are the ones where they're together. That Tango and Cash episode was exactly what I was talking about because, and that's one where Amanda was like, you're not cops, and it's just,
right.
You idiots. And then they get in that garage fight. I mean, just that whole episode just felt so fun. And I will say, as much as I love Ralph Macchio, I think he's just a super nice guy. And he is. I can attest. He's a super nice guy in real life. Not as gifted at the fight choreography. He's also 10 years older than Billy Zabka. But whenever he's fighting, it's a little harder to take serious. It's very Sam-like. In that respect.
There was a moment where he was doing, and I don't know any of the technical terms for fighting, but he had done a kick and then he bent down like he was leaning over, like he was getting ready to do something else and dodge one kick or hit or something. And it was almost like he sat there for a minute whew, gotta catch my breath.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
But it's funny because, I mean, I think Zabka is more naturally inclined to that. It seems like, based on, or maybe it's just the choreography because they do different fight styles for both actors. But
I was going to say, I think it's Johnny is really good at like fast paced choreography, and Daniel is really good at kind of just that
meditative,
calm zen.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I don't see Johnny being able to do any balancing type stuff or anything, but I can absolutely see Daniel being able to like step on a string over a river and like somehow manage to walk across.
That makes sense. That's a good way to put it. And he still had some great fight scenes. I'm not trying to take away. I'm just saying when you put the two fighting together, that's where it really stood out. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's a little different, but it's always
But he's
fun.
also like a dad and he's older. And so like I kind of liked that I saw that. So it was like, okay, this isn't just like some superhuman ability that he's just able to kick somebody's ass no matter how old he gets. Like, is he going to be 85 with a walker and somehow able to do this?
Kids,
No.
I'll kick you off my lawn.
But he has a great arc, and he goes to Okinawa, and he gets to see Kamukyo again, which I love that. I thought that was just beautiful.
She is so beautiful.
Oh,
she is.
She really, really is. And it was really wonderful to see them together, and they're friends, and they have that whole dinner or whatever at her place, and kind of going over old letters from Mr. Miyagi, which I thought was one of my favorite moments. It's a long
I
time
cried
thing.
so hard.
Oh, so good. Hearing him tell him that he was so proud of him, and also explaining his love.
Like a son.
Oh,
and,
so sweet. So it was very fun. I feel like most of what she had to do was just to kind of branch the connection to the dealership to get the car aspect handled, but also to reintroduce him to Shozan. And I'll say that name wrong every time I say it. And I absolutely loved that arc for Daniel. I just thought it was a really important arc for both characters, and also just for him to see for him specifically to see he's been wrong about Johnny this whole time. He is trying to change, and you're doing everything you can to keep him from changing. So you're actually getting in the way of his self-improvement in a way.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the show is about mending relationships and perceptions. And so that was another one that he kind of had to cross that bridge, and they had a relationship by the end that was good and solid, and he learned about himself. He got to receive like kind of like new lessons from Miyagi in a way, and he also expanded his horizons, which is something at his character's level or age I didn't really expect for them to like, he's learning new things. He's finding different things to, incorporate into his fighting, into not just defense, but like, how do you actually weaken a person who is relentless towards hitting you? Because so far, pretty much everything Daniel knows is all about blocking and defense, and like you don't really attack someone. And so this is a new method for him to learn, and from someone that he was enemies with for some time. So I thought that was just really cool. And the way they introduced the two characters, it was so awkward and it was hilarious.
Yeah. He's just stone-faced the whole time, and
then he's like, I'm going to get another drink. No, I will get the drink. You sit down. He's like, okay, man. Like, I guess I'll sit here. It was really funny.
And he also taught him the move where I do think he delivered that well at the end, where he's fighting Kreese, because when Shozan teaches him that move that disables his limbs, I think that was really fun how that came back later on. And,
yeah, I mean, it was perfect.
Oh, yeah. And he did that choreography was perfect. So it's like, it was just that garage fight where it stood out. But that ending where he's fighting Kreese, I thought it was great. I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. And it was, I liked that we got to see him reconnect in a way spiritually, because it felt like Daniel was himself feeling disconnected and that he didn't have that same zen, and he didn't have, I don't know, the guidance. Like, it felt like he was losing some of that. And so for him to reconnect with people of his past and make amends strengthened him, and it taught him new things, and he was able to reconnect with Miyagi in a different way. And I love how they incorporate Mr. Miyagi, because he's still a very important character. Even when Sam was in her fight, she was stuck in her panic attack and she was frozen with Tori until she kicked down that picture of Miyagi and she saw it crushed and she's like, oh no, you did not just do that. Now I gotta fight you.
Yeah, that's basically my grandpa, you know?
Yeah, and so like the power of his character continues to run through the season, and I love that they don't forget him, because he was like the coolest part of the Karate Kid.
Yeah, that part is very, very pivotal to the whole show. And one thing I really appreciated, and I never even would have thought of it, was bringing back the little girl from Karate Kid Part 2 that Daniel saves, and using her as the linchpin for Dino, is that what it was called? And kind of bringing, sealing the deal between the car dealerships, or the car manufacturer and the dealership. I thought that was just a fun touch that I never would have even thought of. I just thought that was great. I love that.
Yeah, that was a really sweet way. And it goes back to what Okinawa's, like, the purpose is. Like, it's, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, just tying it all together, Shozan's acceptance of his depression and, you know, how he went through great shame after what happened in Karate Kid Part 2. I mean, just seeing a character fully embrace their bullying, kind of like Hawk does later on in the season, it's just nice. Like, to always have that coming back where, you know, people are learning lessons 3 seasons in, I just think is really, really cool. Really
and
cool.
Talk about the relevance of that content, that topic right now in our current society, where, and I'm going to just say this and leave it because I know it'll like become like a politically incorrect thing. But there are so many things that are getting, and people that are getting canceled because of things that they've said and done long, long ago in their past that like was incorrect, and like maybe they just shouldn't have said something like that, and they've changed. But people are like, no, you shouldn't have ever said that. Well, this is kind of another way of showing you people do change. People can change. You have to give them an opportunity. And sometimes that means you remove what you're stuck in terms of what you see in someone. Mm-hmm. You know, if you never reconnect with a person, let's say from like middle or high school or something that maybe bullied you, you're probably going to assume that they're still a bully, even though they're like 45, married, kids, you know, whatever. They're probably not the same person. So people are able to change. And like, that's what we see with these bullies, is that they take a moment to self-reflect and they're self-aware and they address what they're doing wrong and they fix it.
Hey, it's life. That's what really happens in it. Last character is Johnny. You know, we open with him, you know, drunk and self-punishing and come on, be a bad girl.
Oh my God, he got beat up so bad too.
I love his dialogue. Whoever writes it, I mean, I just got to figure they're going to Mr. Zabka. Are you cool with? Oh yeah, I'm good. Wemid. What was that one where he's looking up WebMD and he's like, Wemded or whatever it was, and then somebody's like, they're talking about him quitting drinking, and he's like, I'm no quitter. I'm like, Jesus, not negative, man. So he's just always a fun character, and
even with his computer, like he's trying to figure out. He's like, it won't work. It's done. I need to like get rid of it. And they're like, did you plug it in to charge it? No, I guess it does work.
He's so funny, and he's got such great character development through the season, and you know, as he really passionately brings Miguel back, and he uses that Sports Illustrated therapy technique, which I'm sure no physical therapist has ever tried before. And, you know, he keeps pushing him, and he won't let him quit. And, you know, even comes to the realization at the end that he's actually in a good place in his life, and he just needs to get some things straightened up and take care of Robbie and maybe find a building for a dojo instead of a park, and he'll be in a better place. What did you think about Johnny's journey? Were you pretty happy with how they handled Mr. Lawrence this season?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that his character is one we're always waiting to see the progression from, because he is so flawed in so many ways, but we know how much potential he has. And we really get to see that. I think the fact that we see him standing next to Daniel and they're teaching together says so much about his progression. Mm-hmm. It says so much about his development, and his willingness to like set things aside for the greater good, you know? And he was so funny. He was exactly the type of sensei I wanted him to be, you know, like
that Tango and Cash moment where he's smacking the convicts. I'm like, what? I couldn't stop laughing. Like oh God, I just had to we're talking about, he's so funny. And I'm like, oh God. That's so funny.
The name of his new dojo.
Like,
oh my God, it's so ridiculous. The whole thing, there's so much humor in it. And I feel like truly we wouldn't be lost without his character. The show would just not be the same because
obviously
Billy Zabka is just amazing in every sort of way. He has such range of emotion where I feel like crying for him. I feel, you know, happy for him. I'm angry at him. I'm disappointed in him and all of these things because of the way that he portrays his character and the way that he, you know, connects with the audience.
What really bums me out about this series, and I've realized this as this series has gone on, is that William Zabka had, I mean, his career kind of faltered for many, many, many years, you know, and this was kind of like his resurgence, so to speak. While, you know, Elizabeth Shue and Ralph Macchio, they had pretty solid careers and whatnot. And it always bothered me because, especially now, like I'm watching this season, and he does everything an actor should be able to do, and he does it wonderfully. He can play the victim card. He can play an ass kicker. He is vulnerable. He is a hard case. He is, you know, brutal. He's hilarious. I mean, he's a very talented actor. And I feel like how many things could have benefited from him over the years? You know, like I really feel like we missed opportunities with him as an actor because of Hollywood's fault, you know, for whatever Hollywood's reasons are. Or maybe his own. I don't even know the reasons why that would be. But he's just so talented. I'm just glad he found something where he could show that. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Perfectly said.
Okay. Well, you know, you talked about the finale. Let's talk about the finale and its effects. I mean, you have the two working together. That's the end of season 3. So, you know, season 4 is going to be more of that angle, which is what people have wanted for a long time. Are you happy with that?
What I like most about it is we're getting somewhere, you know, because it would be ridiculous if we were going into season 4 and there had been no positive trajectory for these two characters and like it went backwards or something. And I also really like the purpose of it. The purpose is because we have such a big bad in the next season that they are finally realizing they have to come together to get rid of him. You know, he's not going anywhere. Johnny tried to just let it be and let him just, you know, do whatever you want.
It's really both of their faults that he succeeded like he has.
Yeah. I mean, if they would have just worked together from the beginning, none of this would have happened if they could have gotten over anything. And here we are with like children that are so hurt because of these issues that they haven't been able to resolve. And now they have to go against this big bad guy. And for whatever reason, he feels like the villain that can't be defeated. Like they tried to get him out of there. They tried to go to the cops. He was a step ahead and he had already done that. They tried to pay off the landlord to get him out of that building, and that didn't work. That actually went very badly for them.
Amanda's nuclear option.
Yeah. And it just feels like, what could you possibly do to get rid of this guy? Like, are they going to have to murder him? I don't know.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to go that
far. So it's just, they're going to have to find the humanity in him and try to pull that out of him if they don't murder him to get rid of him. And he already has things up his sleeve. So it's going to be, I feel like, a really big fight. And everything is just going to come together finally for these 3 characters primarily and all of their students. You know, everybody's picking sides. And so some people are going to have to fight against their friends. Johnny might have to fight his son again or watch his son get beat again. Like, you have no idea what's to come because everyone is just choosing sides and it's just turning into this massive explosion.
I still foresee Robbie at some point getting the Cobra Kai back for his dad if they can.
I sure hope so.
But I don't think that'll be until like a 5 or the final 6 season, if that is the number. I really feel like the end of next year will be Johnny versus Robbie, maybe in the All Valley tournament. I think that would be, or maybe Johnny versus Kreese or something like that. But I mean, I don't know if senseis can enter, but I think that would be an interesting way to go because next season will definitely end up at All Valley tournament. And, you know, because that's the whole thing. Like if you win, you get it back. And I don't think they're going to win. I think if you want to keep it going for really 6 years, you kind of have to have that where they're going to have to learn a lesson that maybe they're going to have to be tougher or do some more things. So I'm really curious, and I really hope Robbie and Johnny will come together at some point after Robbie recovers from his concussion.
Oh my God.
His locker concussion. Poor kid. Poor kid.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've already talked about him, but is there any favorite moment that we haven't talked about you want to mention before we wrap it up?
Oh, no. I mean, I feel like we really touched on the entire season. So it was all cheesy. It was cheesy goodness. It was so funny. It had some awesome moments, fight moments. And, you know, there's a lot of story development and character development and lessons learned, messages that come across. So I was really happy with this season.
So how would you rate this? Would you rate Cobra Kai Season 3 as ass, kick-ass, or badass?
So I would probably rate it on that scale as badass.
Me too. It was badass. Is this like
it was badass.
Your favorite of the 3, or where were you putting this one of the 3 seasons?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, probably just because we got to see so much. I liked seeing the brutality and like the depth of darkness in so many characters, but also seeing some redemption. It had a lot of good and bad in it that balanced really well, which kind of goes back to that yin and yang thing. And we also got a lot of really great nostalgic throwbacks, which I always love the way that they do that because it gives the old 80s fans the love and appreciation.
Less young 80s fans.
I just meant like the long time fans from the 80s.
I know what you meant.
I didn't mean old as in age. The fans of the 80s movies, something to appreciate and love and feel like they're reconnecting with, but it also makes sure, like 100%, that the people who have not watched them, maybe they don't remember them or they're too young and they're just trying to watch a show with their parents or something, that they understand what's going on because they give you those cheesy little flashbacks at like every moment and fade them in and out. And so it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I would say season 3 is my favorite. And when you're talking about those nostalgic flashbacks, what I personally love, especially as we're in season 3 now, is that the show has eclipsed the nostalgic factor. Like they bring it up, and yes, it's part of the show, but it's unnecessary. Like if you didn't show us the flashbacks and you just kind of alluded to it, we wouldn't have had to really experience the movies to really be where we are and be able to still enjoy the series. Like I know people that have never even seen the first Karate Kid, if you can imagine that. And
wow.
And they really, really love this show. So, I mean, it has definitely eclipsed that nostalgic factor by a wide berth.
Yeah, it's made it its own thing.
It definitely is its own thing, and I can't wait to see more. And I said I would tell you, you can find the panel in the actual website posts for Cobra Kai Season 3 for this particular podcast, where I was in full karate gi, and I hosted these two gentlemen, William Zabka and Ralph Macchio, for a talk about Season 2, prepping for Season 2 at Chicago C2E2. I moderated that event. So if you ever want to see me look ridiculous, I can. And I'll tell you 2 quick stories kind of to show who those guys are. I didn't tell them ahead of time I was going to wear this, right? So I just showed up in my karate gi.
You sure did.
Yeah. It was kind of a long shot, and it was probably, I don't know if it was a great fashion choice, but I was willing to go for it. I was willing to play for it. I was really concerned about how they were going to react. So I got there, the moderator gets there early, and I also got to meet Ming-Ya, who's in The Mandalorian. Oh my God, she's beautiful, but whatever. As Billy was the first one there, and they're working the show at C2E2 at the same time. So when he first arrives, he sees me, and they're introducing us and everything. And I'm like, look, I know we haven't talked yet. We didn't get a chance to talk or go over the questions or anything like that. But I just want to know, are you guys cool with this? I brought a change. If you don't want me to wear it, I can change really quick. And he's like, and keep in mind, I'm in a full karate gi, and I've got the white gi closed and with the belt on, just like you would for karate. And he's looking at me, he goes, I like it, man. It's really cool, but where's Cobra Kai? And so I undid the belt and opened the shirt, and I was wearing the Cobra Kai t-shirt underneath. He's like, all right, badass. And it was just, a very, very cool moment. And, just very, very nice guy. I can attest he is a really, really warm, funny, really decent person who's really appreciative of all the fans. I mean, he really, really cared about everybody that was in the panel that was out there. Like, he really cares about making sure they have a great time. He really appreciates this moment. You know what I mean? And Ralph Macchio, a short story on him, when he arrived, we were all talking, getting ready for the panel and what was going to happen, and, you know, the music that's going to play and all that stuff. And we're getting everything ready, and we're talking about what we're going to talk about. And, you know, he loves the karate gi, by the way. He thought it was great. So they were both on board with that. And so I asked them, I asked Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, I'm like, hey, can I get a picture with you guys? Probably after the panel, because I know we don't have much time right now. That's the only thing I really wanted from the whole thing, was I just want to get a picture with you guys. And they're like, absolutely, absolutely. You know, we'll do it after the panel. And keep in mind, actors, if you don't know, they all have handlers, basically. So everywhere they're going,
make them sound like animals in the zoo.
That's exactly what it's like. They're just pushing them. They got to be at certain places at certain times, and they're doing certain things. Like, they're on a set schedule. They can't be late. So we do the panel.
And you're at a thing where, like, people pay for photos too. Yes,
and I'm at a thing for, I don't think that was an issue, that's a very,
their handlers might be like,
They actually have contracts in place where they can't do like random photos with people as they walk down the hallway and stuff, because that's how those facilities make their money too. They get a percentage of that and stuff. So sometimes that's a factor too. So we go on stage, we do the event, and it's about an hour long. Do the Q&A. I wish some better questions would have came up, but hey, it is what it is.
There was one, and I don't even remember what the question was. God, I hope it's on the YouTube. But somebody asked a question, and I think it was, I can't remember which one of them, but it was like such a weird question that they were both they looked like, okay, next.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but it was so weird and like almost like they had not actually watched anything, and they were just asking a question that was like super obvious. God, I wish I could remember it, but it was so funny. They handled it really well, because they were not mean, and even though you could see people kind of like looking at them weird and
absolutely
maybe almost laughing.
And you also, if you watch the video, when we first go on stage and I introduce William Zabka and Ralph Macchio, when Zabka comes out, the first thing he does, because I have the karate gi closed at that point, he comes at me like he's going to fight me because I'm wearing the karate gi, and so then I pull it apart and sees Cobra Kai. He's like, all right. And it was just a very funny joke on his part. So we go on, we do the panel, and it's an hour, and as soon as they're done, they have to be at another thing. Like, literally after the panel is over, they have to go. So they, very, very nice guys, they came over and said, thank you for a great panel. We had a great time. Love what you did, and da-da-da, which was very nice. They didn't have to even take time for that. And so I didn't ask about the picture because I know they're in a rush, right? So I'm like, well, it is what it is. And so they're getting down the hallway, and Ralph Macchio actually, and keep in mind, he's a guy, he's busy, he's important in that world, so he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to stop. Stops, nudges William. He's like, oh yeah, we gotta get his picture. And his handlers tell him, no, we don't have time. He's like, no, we said we're gonna do it. We're definitely gonna do it. He just did this for us. And so we go and we find a room, and this is probably 10 minutes it took to find a spot where we could actually take a picture and everything else. Both guys very okay with it. Their handlers very not, which I understand their perspective, because they gotta get them places. And it's just like little moments like that, like when Billy got there and when Ralph left and came back, just because that was important to me, and he said he would do something, and he a man of his word, I assume. And I just want to, those are my two behind the scenes moments, were to attest that those guys are pretty damn good guys.
Yeah, they sound really sweet, and it was a good picture too. Came out great.
Yeah, it came out great, and it was a great time. Absolutely great time. And it will live on as long as YouTube has it up. So definitely check that out. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Anything more you want to say about Cobra Kai, Amanda, as we wrap this up?
No mercy.
Strike first. Strike hard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for the Hollywood Outsider. Remember, you can always subscribe. We'll be back next week with our whole awards, and that will be coming out on Wednesday like our normal episodes do. We've got a couple that came out a little early due to some premieres and whatnot, but it'll be Wednesday as usual next week. Thanks for coming back, and I think you'll enjoy that. We've got a whole lot of movies and TV shows that we're given our version of an award too. So I hope you guys check it out.
And as long as we stay in the good graces of Netflix, hopefully we'll have another season of Cobra Kai to review early for you guys.
That would be fantastic. That's really on you, Amanda.
Shout out to Netflix.
No pressure. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Remember, subscribe. Go to thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Please review us on whatever podcast app you use. And we look forward to talking to you more in 2021. So the next time you head to a theater or sit comfortably on your couch watching TV, buy popcorn. Hiya!
Big old dork.
You're a dork.